Welcome to the next episode of Small Business Legal Tips. I'm attorney Mark Bross of Bross Law LLC. I'm a Massachusetts business lawyer with over 15 years of experience helping entrepreneurs build, grow, and protect their small businesses. Today we're going to talk about something every Massachusetts LLC owner needs to do every year. File your annual report with the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's a very simple process, but many business owners either forget to do it or don't know that they have to do it. So in this episode, I'll walk you through exactly how to complete and file your Massachusetts LLC annual report step by step, no lawyer needed. Stick around to the end and I'll share some pro tips to avoid late fees and keep your LLC in good standing with the state of Massachusetts. And please, if you'd like to get more helpful legal tips, hit the like and subscribe button below and ring the bell so that you get notified when the next episode drops. It really helps the channel and lets me know that you'd like to receive more legal tips like this one. So let's get to it. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is an annual report? In Massachusetts, every LLC is required to file an annual report each and every single year. It's basically a key check-in with the state confirming your company's key information, such as your business address, the names and address of your managers if you have any, the names and address of your resident agent, and various other types of key information. Many people think that the annual report is a financial report that your business is providing to the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But that's not true, and it has nothing to do with your business income or expenses or anything like that. You do have to report most of that information to the Massachusetts Department of Revenue when you file your taxes, but that is completely different than your annual report. Instead, think of the annual report as the state's way of keeping its business records up to date and also charging you a fee for the privilege of operating an LLC in Massachusetts. If you don't file the annual report, the Secretary of the Commonwealth will mark your LLC as not in good standing, and after a while, usually 2 to 3 years, your LLC would be administratively dissolved, which means your LLC is no longer supposed to be operating in the state of Massachusetts and doesn't provide you with any liability protection. This is a serious issue, since one of the primary reasons people set up an LLC is to operate their business and shield their personal assets from the debts and liabilities associated with the business operations. The good news is that preventing this is fairly simple. You just need to file your annual reports each and every single year and pay the filing fees associated with the annual report, which we'll talk about next. The next question you might have is, when do you need to file your LLC annual report? Some people think it's due at the beginning of each and every fiscal year in January, but that's not true. Your LLC annual report is due each year by the anniversary date of when your LLC was originally formed. So if your LLC was formed on June 10th of a particular year, your annual report is due by June 10th each and every year after that. And if your LLC was formed on November 5th of a particular year, your LLC annual report is due on November 5th every year after that, and so on and so forth. So how much does it cost to file your LLC annual report? Well, the costs vary depending on how you file your annual report, and the filing fees are either $500 or $520. The filing fees are $500 if you file in person or by mail. But if you file online or by fax, then the filing fees are $520 to file your annual report. The next question you probably have is, what goes into your LLC annual report? And there's a lot of different information that goes into an LLC annual report. The best way to explain what goes into an LLC annual report is to actually take a look at one, and we'll go over it together. So here's a Form LLC annual report. There's a couple of things to note here before we start talking in detail about it. First, this form comes from the Massachusetts Division of Corporations website, and it's a PDF form that's publicly available for anyone to use. I'll put a link below to the website where you can obtain it. If you're going to file by fax, by mail, or in person, this is the form to use, and you input your LLC's information in the blank boxes. We'll talk about the different ways to file in just a moment. The second thing to point out is that this form is only to be used for LLCs that are not associated with professional services, like doctors, lawyers, nurses, or others. If your LLC is providing professional services and it's a professional LLC, which are sometimes called a PLLC, you need to file a different annual report, which I'll talk about in a future video. Now that these points are out of the way, let's start at the top line where it's asking for the federal identification number and the year. By the federal identification number, they're referring to your EIN. But there is no need to enter your federal identification number, even though there's a spot for it. The Secretary of the Commonwealth stopped collecting this information years ago, but has not changed the online form that's publicly available for everyone to use. So even though it appears on the form that you should enter your federal employment identification number, don't do it. For the year, put the calendar year in which you're filing it. For example, if I was filing the annual report today, I would put the year 2025. And if I was filing it for next year, I would put 2026, and so on and so forth. Now, if you take a look at section 1A, you'll see that it's asking you for the exact name of your LLC. Here, you should put the exact name of your LLC as it's written on your certificate of organization. So if the name of your LLC in your certificate of organization is called Coco Dog Walking LLC, after my dog Coco, you would put that information here. Now, if you take a look at section 1B, you'll see that it's asking for the exact name of the LLC as amended. You only want to write anything here if you want to actually change the name of your LLC. One of the unique things about an LLC in Massachusetts is that you can change most of the information contained in the original certificate of organization by means of the annual report, and you don't need to file a certificate of amendment. So, if you decide you want to change the name of your LLC from Coco Dog Walking LLC to Coco Pet Services LLC, you would write that here in section 1B. And when you do that and file it, you've changed the name of the LLC to what's contained in line 1B of your LLC annual report. You just need to remember that next year, when you complete and file your annual report, the exact name of your LLC in line 1A will be what you changed it to in the prior year in line 1B of your annual report. The next line down on your LLC annual report is section 2A, which is the location of the LLC's principal office. This should be the primary address associated with the business, and it does not have to be an address in Massachusetts. For example, if the primary office associated with your business is in New Hampshire, you would want to put that address here. The next line down is section 2B, which is the street address in Massachusetts where the LLC's records will be maintained. Unlike the principal office address, this address does have to be in Massachusetts, and it has to be a real physical address in Massachusetts and cannot be a P.O. box. Now you might be wondering, what do they mean by records? And by records, they're talking about specific records that are mandated to be kept in an office in Massachusetts by the LLC statute MGL Chapter 156C. These records include things like the names and address of all the members of the LLC, the certificate of organization for the LLC, the income tax returns for the past 3 years, any operating agreement that the LLC has, and various other things that are mandated by statute to keep. All of these records must be kept at an office in Massachusetts, and they're supposed to be available for inspection by the Secretary of the Commonwealth. I've never actually heard of the Secretary actually asking for these records, but you are required to keep them at a specific office in Massachusetts. The next line down in your LLC annual report is section 3, which is the general character of the business. Here, you should write down what your business does. So, for example, for Coco Dog Walking LLC, we could write pet care services and any other business permitted by Massachusetts law. You don't need a lot of detail here. You just want to put a brief summary of what your business does at a very high level. I also always recommend that you stick on the end and any other business permitted by Massachusetts law. That way you're covered in case you decide you ever want to change what the business does and you don't actually need to amend the certificate of organization or change what your business does in an annual report. The next line down in your LLC annual report is section 4, which is the latest date of dissolution if specified. In general, this should always be blank, unless you want to set a specific length of time for your LLC to operate. It's unclear why you'd ever want to do that, but if you want to set a specific length of time for your LLC to operate, this is the section where you put a date as to when you want it to dissolve. The next line down in the LLC annual report is section 5, where you need to identify the name and the street address of the resident agent. The resident agent is the person who is authorized to accept a summons and complaint on behalf of the LLC, and that person needs to have a physical address in Massachusetts. Now, one thing to note here is that information about the resident agent is one of the few things that can't be changed by the annual report, so the person you name here and the address you put here needs to be the exact same as what's identified in your certificate of organization. If you want to change the resident agent for your LLC, or the address where the resident agent is located, there's a different form you need to file, and I'll put a link to that form below. The next line down in the LLC annual report is section 6, where you need to provide the name and business address for any manager associated with the LLC. Now, although the name is not exciting, the manager of an LLC is the person or the people who are responsible for managing and controlling all aspects of the LLC. Your LLC doesn't have to have a manager, but if you do, that person needs to be identified here, and you need to provide his or her business address. The manager that's identified has the authority to sign documents on behalf of the LLC and is generally responsible for managing and controlling the LLC. These rights can be severely restricted by an operating agreement, but the person who is identified as the manager in the annual report or on the certificate of organization is considered to be the public face of the LLC, and it will be assumed that that person has the authority to act on behalf of the LLC and bind the LLC for whatever contract they sign. A couple of things to note here. First, the business address can be the principal office of the LLC that's identified in Section 2A, or it can be some other business address where the individual works for the company. It should not be the manager's personal address unless that also happens to be the principal office of the company. Second, the person identified as a manager in your annual report does not have to be the same person that was identified as the manager in your certificate of organization. If the name is different from the certificate of organization, your LLC is deemed to have changed managers with the filing of the annual report, and the person who was previously identified is no longer considered to be the manager of the LLC. So be careful about who you identify as a manager in your LLC annual report, and make sure that you actually want to identify that person as the manager. Let's move on to the next page of the LLC annual report. Take a look at Section 7, which is asking you to identify the name and business address of anyone who's authorized to execute, which means signs, documents with the corporation's division. A few things to note with respect to this line. First, if you already identified a manager in Section 6 and you don't want to add anybody else here, you can leave it blank. However, if you didn't identify a manager in Section 6, you have to identify someone in this section and provide his or her business address. Second, like we just discussed, the business address can be the principal address of the company that's identified in Section 2A of the annual report, or it can be some other business address where the person works. To reiterate, it should not be a personal address unless that's the principal office of the company. Third, the corporations division refers to the division of the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that is responsible for maintaining and handling the public records for all business entities registered in Massachusetts, such as corporations, LLCs, and limited partnerships. This is the division where you file your LLC annual report, and it is the division where you'll be communicating with if there are any problems with your LLC annual report or in general with your LLC. As a warning, I often just refer to the Corporations Division when I'm talking about the Secretary of the Commonwealth because it's easier to say Corporations Division, so don't be confused. Fourth, like the Manager section, the person identified here does not have to be the same person that was identified in your Certificate of Organization or have the same business address. If it's different, then you will be changing who is authorized to sign documents with the Corporations Division, and the person who was previously identified in the Certificate of Organization will no longer be authorized. So again, be careful about who you identify in this section of your LLC annual report, and you actually want to authorize this person that you identify to file documents with the Corporations Division. Let's move on to Section 8 of the LLC annual report, which is asking you to identify the name and business address of any person who is authorized to execute, acknowledge, deliver, or record any recordable instrument that affects an interest in real property. A couple of points to make here. First, you need to identify someone here and provide their business address. If you have a manager, it can be your manager. But if your LLC doesn't have a manager, it could be a member or someone else that you want to identify here. As discussed with the last two sections, the person identified here does not have to be the same person that was identified in the Certificate of Organization, and the business address can be the principal office of the company that's identified in Section 2A. Second, when talking about recordable instruments, the annual report is talking about documents that can be filed with the Registry of Deeds, such as deeds, mortgages, leases, and various other documents. If your LLC is planning on buying property, the person who's identified in this section is the only person who can sign and record documents in the Registry of Deeds where the property is located. So let's move on to Section 9 of the LLC annual report, which is additional matters. Here, you can include any other information that you want to be a public record associated with the LLC. There's rarely anything you want to put here unless you want to put third parties on notice of particular facts about the LLC. For example, if you want to ensure that certain actions may not be taken by the LLC without the approval of certain members, you can include that information here so that it's a public record that everyone has notice of. However, this is very unusual. And if you want to include restrictions like this, you should speak with an attorney to make sure that it's done properly to protect yourself and the LLC. After you've completed these sections, the next step is for either the manager identified in Section 6 or one of the people identified in Section 7 to sign the annual report. The person signing has to be identified in one of these sections, otherwise the LLC annual report will be rejected by the Division of Corporations. Before moving on to the filing process, let's take a look at page 3, where you also have to input some information. Take a look at the top of the page, which should be left blank by you. This will be filled in by the Corporations Division after your annual report is filed and accepted. But if you take a look at the bottom of page 3, you'll see spots where you want to include the contact information for the person who's actually filing the LLC annual report. Here you should provide your name, your address, your phone number, and your email address. This information is not part of your LLC annual report and will not be a public record. But make sure that you put accurate information here so that someone from the Corporations Division can reach out to you if there's a problem with your filing or if they have any questions. Okay, now that we've gone over all the information that needs to be included in an annual report, let's move on to how to file. As I discussed previously, there are 4 different ways to file: in person, by mail, by fax, or online. The first way to file an annual report is in person. To do this, you need to print out the completed form that we just went over, have an authorized signatory sign it, and bring it to the Corporations Division office at 1 Ashburton Place in Boston, Massachusetts. I'll put a link to the address below. You also need to bring the filing fees, which are $500 for an in-person filing, and these can be paid by cash, check, money order, or credit card for an in-person filing. The drawback to filing in person is that you have to physically go to the Corporations Division office in Boston or hire a courier to do it for you. The benefit of an in-person filing is that you find out right away if your filing is accepted or rejected. The second way to file your LLC annual report is by mail. To do this, you'll need to print out the completed form that we just went over, have an authorized signatory sign it, and mail it to the Corporations Division office in Boston at 1 Ashburton Place. You also need to send the filing fees of $500 by check or money order. Any check or money order should be made out to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The drawback to filing by mail is that the process can take a while, and you likely won't be notified if your filing has been accepted or rejected. You'll need to keep on regularly checking the Massachusetts Corporations Division website to see if your LLC annual report has been accepted or rejected. I'll put a link below to the website where you can check for this information. The benefit of filing your LLC annual report by mail is that it saves you a trip to Boston, and it'll also save you $20, which you'd have to pay if you wanted to file by fax or online. The third way to file your LLC annual report is by fax. To file it this way, you need to follow the exact same steps that you followed above regarding printing and signing your completed annual report. However, since you're sending it by fax, you'll also need to obtain a fax voucher cover sheet that shows that you've paid the filing fees. I'll put a link below to the website where you can obtain the fax voucher cover sheet. When obtaining the fax voucher cover sheet, you'll need to pay the $520 filing fee by credit card or by e-check. After you pay the filing fees, you'll print out the fax voucher cover sheet and then fax it along with your LLC annual report. The number you fax it to will be included on the fax voucher cover sheet, so it's pretty straightforward. The benefit of filing your LLC annual report by fax is that it saves you the hassle of a trip to Boston, and it's also quicker than filing it by mail. The drawback is that it's $20 more expensive than if you filed by mail or in person, and it's slower than an online filing. Sometimes you won't know for a day or two whether your fax filing has been accepted or rejected by the Corporations Division, so you need to keep on checking the Corporations Division website for relevant info. And again, I'll put the link below where you want to check for this information. The fourth way to file your LLC annual report is online. To file in this way, you'll need to go to the Corporations Division online filing page, which I'll put a link to below. Once you're at that page, you'll be prompted for the CID and the PIN for your LLC. These numbers were sent to you after your certificate of organization was originally filed or with your annual report filing reminder. Don't worry if you lost them or you didn't receive them, which is not a whole lot uncommon. You just need to email corpsid@sec.state.ma.us and request a CID and PIN for your LLC. I'll put a link to the email address below, and it's also on the corporate filing page at the Mass Division of Corporations. As the subject for the email you send, put CID and PIN for whatever the name of your LLC is. In the body of your email, just explain that you're looking to file the annual report for your LLC and ask for the CID and PIN for the entity. They'll send it to you within a couple of hours. After you receive the CID and PIN, input them in the appropriate spots on the Corporations Division filing page. You'll then be brought to a page where you select Annual Report. Once you click on Annual Report, you'll be brought to an online annual report for your LLC where all the information from your LLC is already pre-populated from your certificate of organization or from your last annual report filing. So you don't need to input anything unless you're actually changing some information associated with your LLC. If you're not changing anything, just review everything on the pre-populated annual report to make sure it's all accurate. Then you need to electronically sign it and submit it and pay the $520 in filing fees by credit card or electronic check. The benefit of an online filing is that it's the easiest and most efficient method to file your LLC annual report. All the information needed for your LLC annual report is already pre-populated in the form, and so long as you're not changing anything, you just need to review it for accuracy. Also, you'll be able to find out whether it's been accepted or rejected in a matter of hours. The one drawback to filing your LLC annual report online is that it's $20 more expensive than filing it in person or by mail. So there you have it, how to complete and file your LLC annual report without a lawyer. Before we wrap it up though, I want to offer a few pro tips. First, remember that anything included on your LLC annual report is public information. The Corporations Division website is publicly available and easily searchable. Second, set a recurring calendar reminder to file your annual report every year before your LLC anniversary date. The Corporations Division occasionally sends annual report reminders, but it's not great about doing so. And if you don't file your LLC annual report for a couple of years, your LLC will be administratively dissolved and it will no longer shield your personal assets from your business operations. It can be reinstated after dissolution, but you'll need to pay all overdue annual report filing fees, late fees, plus an additional fees for reinstatement. It's just not worth it. Just file your LLC annual report on time and set a reminder to help you do so. Third, no matter what method you use to file your LLC annual report, make sure to keep on checking the Corporations Division website to confirm that it's been accepted. All LLC annual reports that have been accepted can be seen on the Corporations Division website. You just need to go to the Business Entity Lookup page, input your LLC's name, and click View All Filings. If your LLC annual report has been accepted, it should show up on the list of filings associated with your LLC, and you should be able to view it as a PDF. If it doesn't show up, you need to go over to the rejected corporate filings on the Corporations Division website and search to see if your LLC annual report was rejected. If it was rejected, there'll be instructions about how to fix the problem. I'll put a link to both pages below. If it's not on either page, that just means that it hasn't been processed yet, and you need to come back in a day or two. I hope you found this information helpful. If you found it helpful, please like the episode, subscribe to the channel, and share it with another Massachusetts business owner who can use a little guidance. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of Small Business Legal Tips.